right, welcome to Computational Combat. We're looking at mixed martial arts through the eyes of the betting algorithm. I'm Dylan Grayson, joined by the brains of the operation, Johnny Koppelman, and of course, the pound for pound #1 pick on Tinder in Wisconsin, Connor Potter. How are we doing?
We're not on Tinder. That's what we aren't.
Let me guess, Bumble, Hinge, and J-Swipe.
Yeah, I got one of those.
One of those three. It's one. Okay. So we're going to try and get into the actual stuff that matters quickly this week. So, Johnny, how did we do with the algorithm on last week's card?
Yep, so that was more of a tame week with 8% profit on your bet. So we still pulled positive with standout performances from people like Clay Guida, Danilo Marquez, and Seung-Woo Choi. Those were huge wins with more disappointing losses from Connor's favorite Frankie Edgar and Alistair Overeem.
Yeah, Connor, if you would like a moment of mourning, you may have it.
Yes, can we just have a moment of silence, everyone?
How about 28 seconds of silence?
All right, that sounds good, everyone.
I don't think Connor got that.
Yeah, I think that went over Connor's head. I'm fucking with you.
No, I got it. I'm hurting inside.
Oh, okay.
Well, regardless, yeah.
No, it's only fair. I get to make fun of you every single time that one of your boys gets knocked out, and that happens frequently enough.
I mean, shitposting aside, I don't think Chris Weidman's fought in a while.
Yeah, aren't we all?
He was supposed to, and then he got COVID.
Oh, he's gonna fight Uriah Hall in April, and I'm not ready for it. That's gonna be. But he also moved down to South Carolina, so is he my boy anymore? I mean, he's still my boy, but
from his dad. Oh my god, that was the cringiest thing ever.
All right, so we are going to get into this week's card. This is UFC 258, headlined by the welterweight title fight, Kamaru Usman defending against his teammate or former teammate, Gilbert Burns. So, breaking it down from the early prelims, the first fight is at flyweight, Jillian Robertson versus Miranda Maverick. First things first, Miranda Maverick is working on her PhD while also being a UFC fighter. And two of us here are students in doctorate programs. And how the fuck is she doing this? How in the fucking hell can she manage to be a UFC fighter and do a PhD? Before COVID, I would get to do jujitsu about 2 times a week for about an hour and a half to 2 hours at a time. And that was all that I could fit in with my studying. I don't know how she manages it, but yeah, she's fucking great.
Dylan, you know about Rosie Sexton, right?
Yeah, but that was like before I ever started watching it. Also, I believe, okay, so for anyone who is not informed, Rosie Sexton was one of the kind of pioneers in women's MMA, and she was also a doctor, like a full-on like medical doctor.
Nope.
Yep.
Nope.
She's a DO, but that is a medical doctor. She was an osteopathic doctor.
Pretty sure she has a PhD in math?
Nope. She's an osteopath. I watched an in-depth video of her breaking down fighter injuries at her clinic.
She has both.
Oh,
when she gets kicked in the face, she knows if it's like a contusion or concussion or what's going on.
Okay, yeah, so she's a double doctor, and she was fighting in MMA.
She got her PhD from University of Manchester in mathematics.
Absolutely insane. Yeah, I'm not sure if she was actually still in school while she was doing that. Obviously, take nothing away from her. She's an absolute badass in every sense of the word. But to be actively studying while doing it just seems so unbelievably difficult. I really don't get it. But that's not what really matters here when looking at this fight and breaking it down. So I'm going to keep it short and sweet here. Miranda Maverick looked really good in her UFC debut, and her striking was pretty good. And live in Boston back in 2019, before the world went to shit, I saw Jillian Robertson face Macy Barber, and Barber pieced her up on the feet. Got the TKO with Robertson up against the cage. So I feel like if Macy Barber was able to do that to Jillian Robertson, I think Miranda Maverick should be able to as well. Connor, what do you got?
I actually disagree. I think Macy Barber being able to do that is because Macy Barber is an athletic freak who is extremely aggressive. Even though Jillian Robertson lost her most recent fight, like she has good wins over people who are legit. I mean, Courtney Casey is a much better win than the only fight that Miranda Maverick has had in the UFC. I'm going to take Jillian Robertson. I still think she's like one of the best prospects at women's flyweight. I still think she's super legit.
All right, Johnny, who's right? Who's wrong?
Well, the algorithm agrees with Connor, so Connor, hopefully that makes you like it even more. It has Jillian Robertson as a 57% favorite. The books have Jillian Robertson as a betting underdog. So it is throwing a medium size 0.57% of the fund or 57 cents to your $100 fund.
Yeah.
That's
All right.
surprising.
I don't really get her being the underdog on the books. I would figure that even though I like Maverick, she's less known. So I would figure that she'd be the underdog. But hey,
Yeah.
good value there. All right, moving on to welterweight, Gabriel Green versus Philip Rowe. So I believe this one we have no algorithm pick for because one of them is a debut. So Green is 0-1 in the UFC and Rowe is making his debut. He got a knockout win on the Contender Series. I really don't know what to say about this one. Green's only loss in the UFC was to Daniel Rodriguez. Daniel Rodriguez is legit. Rowe hasn't fought in the UFC yet, but he is coming off of a knockout win on Contender Series. I don't even want to give out a pick because I don't think I have enough information to like make any sort of educated guess here. Connor,
Yeah,
anything?
I'm with you on that actually. I know that I've seen the Daniel Rodriguez Gabe Green fight. I just can't remember it for the life of me. Um, but I also I can't make a pick here. I have no idea.
Fair enough. And the algorithm's got nothing. So
Speechless.
we will give you nothing on that. You get fucking nothing. Do you understand me? Nothing. All right, moving on to 145. Ricky Simone versus Brian Kelleher. So Simone's only official losses in the UFC have been to Uriah Faber and Rob Font, and that Rob Font loss is aging very, very well. Kelleher, on the other hand, has a few more losses than that, but also has a few big wins. The thing that makes it for me, and this may be totally in my perception, it may not be true, but I thought that Brian Kelleher wasn't particularly big at bantamweight, and now they're fighting at featherweight. And Ricky Simone, at least to me, seemed like he was bigger. And I feel like fighting at 10 pounds up from their usual weight with their size frames, I think Simone's going to have a distinct strength advantage here. So I'm going to go with Ricky Simone.
I think I agree. I mean, Brian Kelleher's doing real well right now. Like he really aggressively during 2020. I mean, he fought 4 times. He tried to fight 5 times actually, but one of his fights fell through. Um, he is extremely active. I've always thought of him as kind of just like one of those career journeymen, but he really seems to have started turning things around and figuring them out. We actually got to watch him fight live versus Marlon Vera. That was awesome. We also actually got to watch Ricky Simone fight live when he technically knocked out Merab Dvalishvili. But even though he's had pretty embarrassing losses to or the I guess the one pretty embarrassing loss to Uriah Faber and then the loss to Rob Font, which like Dylan said is aging really well. Ricky Simone is big, he's powerful, he's extremely aggressive, and he's pretty durable. The knockout to Uriah Faber aside, I think I'm gonna be taking Simone in this, but it wouldn't surprise me if as he shoots in for a takedown, if like Kelleher snatches up one of those guillotines or if some other weird type of thing happens going in.
So I would be happy if that happened. However, the algorithm agrees with both of you. It has Ricky Simon as a 64% favorite, but the books have Keller as such a fat underdog that it is throwing an 11 cent or 0.11% of your fund on Brian Keller. So let's hope for the win from Keller.
That is, I believe, the smallest bet it's ever thrown, correct?
Yeah, we make history every week. This is now officially the smallest bet it's ever placed.
Right.
Percentage-wise.
We've been working off of a framework of, let's say you had $100, but the betting algorithm keeps expanding week after week. So
exactly.
The amount of money that the betting algorithm would throw out, like the percentage of the fund is probably going to shrink. So maybe we'll have to reframe it somehow. But I think that the best way to look at it is to compare the size of the bets on this card, right? So if this one is 11 cents and then later on we have a bet that's, $2, think about that in terms of your own bets and have them like proportionally to what I'm saying there.
Yes. So off of that, this is the smallest bet of the night, with one other fight also being an 11.11% or a 0.11 or 11 cents of your funds. So yes, to what Dylan's saying, this would be your lowest denomination of however you bet.
All right, so moving on to women's strawweight, Polyana Viana versus Mallory Martin. So Polyana Viana has, how many years ago was it now? It's probably about 2 or 3 years ago, where somebody tried to mug her in Brazil, and she beat the ever-living hell out of that guy. Poor dude. I don't actually, fuck that.
Wait,
not
why
poor dude.
do you feel bad for him?
Poor dude. What?
Not poor dude. Poor choice of words.
Yeah.
This guy got absolutely shit canned and then thoroughly embarrassed afterwards, which he fully deserved. But it only gets more embarrassing when the 115-pound woman that beat your ass cannot beat Hannah Cyphers, because that is an embarrassing loss. And I obviously, once again, none of us fight. None of us have ever come close to fighting, right? We've all trained a little bit in martial arts here and there. None of us are brave enough to step into the cage. I don't want to shit on a fighter like that. But if we're looking at fighters and comparing them on a skill level, a loss to Hannah Cyphers doesn't look great. So that being said, I'm going to go with Mallory Martin. Martin beat Cyphers, and her only loss in the UFC was to Vina Jandiroba, and that loss is actually aging very well. Jandiroba looks pretty good. So I like Mallory Martin here. And another note, Mallory Martin had a loss early in her career, long before she ever came to the UFC, against Macy Barber, who will come up again later on tonight. All right, Connor.
I don't really have much to add. I agree with you. I think that if you look at all of Polyana Viana's losses, I mean, she has lost to JJ Aldrich, who's doing okay in the UFC. She's lost to Hannah Cyphers, and she's lost to Veronica Macedo, none of whom are particularly impressive wins. I like Emily Whitmire. That's a good win, but you can't give away fights to all three of those people. And if you want to go off of a silly, strictly MMA math type of thing, only one of those people has beaten Hannah Cyphers. And while normally I would say that means nothing, it seems to be relevant here.
Right. Is it Cyphers, not Cyphers?
I'm pretty sure I've always heard.
I'm not the guy for pronunciation. We know that.
Yeah, Johnny, how would you say it?
I probably wouldn't even say with an. I don't even know. I couldn't even tell you.
All right, what does the algorithm have?
So the algorithm heavily disagrees with both of you. It has Poly Vienna as a 70% favorite. Whoa. And that's high. And when you see these kinds of percentages, it usually comes through. So we'll see. And I hope it does, because Poly Vienna is an underdog on the books. So it is putting $1.70 or 1.7% of the fund. And if we wanted to say in size of the bets being placed tonight, this is tied for the biggest bet being placed on this card.
Okay, so the only thing that I have to say is that every single week I go, well, I don't like that bet personally, but we'll see. And every single time the algorithm is right and I'm wrong. That's not to say that the algorithm always gets the fights right. Gets it right most of the time. But every single time that I've had the nerve to speak up and go, I don't like that bet, I get shut up. So we'll see if it happens again.
I feel like 90% of my texts to our group chat are me going, God damn it, Johnny, yeah. How did that happen?
Yeah. Or it had that. The Dariush one, we all agreed, and the model got that right. But the one that was really funny was the Sang-Woo Choi, I think. You didn't believe?
Oh, yeah. Totally didn't agree. I thought Rodriguez was going to beat Marquez as well last week. And I just texted you Jesus, it pisses me off.
I love hearing those
kind of stuff. And I don't. All right, moving on to what should be a fun fight here at welterweight, Diego Lima versus Bilal. Remember the name, Muhammad. First of all, pound for pound, best nickname in MMA? Maybe not, but it's close. It's very good. Second of all, both of these guys are on 3-fight win streaks, and they're also fighting off of decently long layoffs. But Muhammad has the better streak and the shorter layoff, and I like that. Also, I just think that Bilal Muhammad is a little bit better than Diego Lima. I feel like he should be able to pressure and get the win here. Diego Lima is good, but he's not his brother, right? Douglas Lima, current Bellator welterweight champion? I don't know. None of us follow Bellator because, we like good MMA. The Bellator welterweight division is actually quite decent, but none of us follow Bellator.
Yeah, it's very average.
Yeah. But Diego's
Post it on when Yoel fights. That's it.
Yeah. All right, Connor, what do you got here?
I really don't have a lot to add. You got to stop doing that to me, Dylan. Bilal Muhammad, in addition to having the great nickname, he's incredibly durable. I mean, we watched him eat head kicks like Tic Tacs from Jeff Neal. The dude's got a good mix of striking, clinch grinding, and wrestling. He's durable. He's got good cardio, and he's very willing to just bite down on his mouthpiece and do what needs to be done to dig out a win. Diego Lima's okay. He's had a pretty surprising career resurgence. I actually thought he was going to get cut from the UFC a lot earlier than this, if I remember correctly. So he's been surprising me, but like you said, he's not his brother, and that's not to say that he has to be as good as his brother is in order to win this fight. But I don't think that he is the right type of skill set to challenge someone like Bilal. Bilal is like a top 15 gatekeeper, and he's really good at shutting the door in your face.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Johnny, tell us why we're wrong.
No, the algorithm agrees with you guys. It has Bilal Muhammad as a 52% favorite, but it has this fight a lot closer. And it just so happens that the book has this fight a lot further. They have Bilal Muhammad as a humongous favorite and Diego Lima as a humongous underdog. So it is putting the second biggest bet of the night, $1.14 or 1.14%. So this would be your like medium tier bet. This is a pretty decent sized bet.
And that's going
And it's
on
the
Lima?
value play. Yeah, this is a value play, exposing value in the book, thinking it's going to be less close than the algorithm does.
Yeah, I'm not mad about that one. I feel like Diego Lima will probably lose, but I don't think it's impossible for him to win. And if he does come through, that's good money.
Yeah, I looked it up, by the way. Douglas Lima is still the champion, but his last fight was a loss to Gegard Mousasi. He went up in weight.
Right, that was it.
That fight was not good.
I'm saying yes like I know, but I don't even know it's Bellator.
Yeah. All right, moving on to middleweight. Rodolfo Vieira versus Anthony Hernandez. So 2 words here that are important. Jiu-jitsu. That's it. I mean, I'm actually just going to throw it to you immediately, Connor, because what else is there?
Yeah, I don't disagree. My most prominent memories of this are Rodolfo Vieira having an incredible. I think has he only had one fight in the UFC? Yeah, so he still only had one fight in the UFC. So he's coming off of almost a year-long layoff. But he's going to be one of those guys who's going to be entering as one of the best possible jiu-jitsu practitioners in MMA currently. Dylan, you would know better than I do, but in my understanding, he's extremely well credentialed.
Yeah, I believe he's a multiple-time ADCC champion, but I can't.
Yeah, do you want to look that up real quick?
I will.
And on the other side, you have Anthony Fluffy Hernandez, who, in addition to having just not a very good nickname, his UFC stint has thus far consisted of getting choked out by a dude who's a Joker cosplayer at weigh-ins and getting kneed in the stomach and immediately TKO'd by Kevin Holland. And then a win in between there. But I don't really have any reason to think that Anthony Hernandez is going to have the defensive wrestling or the defensive grappling to prevent this from getting the ground and to prevent himself from getting tapped out when it gets there.
So Vieira was ADCC Submission Wrestling World Champion in 2015, and then has what is listed as Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu World Championships, though I'm not sure which organization, world titles in 2011, 2012, 2013, 2014.
So the algorithm agrees with both of you, and it agrees extremely hard, meaning that it has Vieira. Is it Vieira? I just heard you say it, but I have a terrible memory. Vieira as a 73% favorite.
Yeah.
The books, however, have him as an even heavier favorite, and they have Hernandez as an even heavier underdog than we do. We have him as a 26% chance of winning. They have him as much less. So it's exposing value in the underdog, seeming that we think it'll be closer, even though not that close, but closer than they give the value for. So it is placing 11 cents to your 100 or 0.11%. Once again, the smallest denomination of the night.
Right. I don't think this one's going to come through, but that's why it throws a very small bet at it. Low risk, potential high reward. I get it. I disagree. I get it.
I feel like, I don't know. I feel like I can see a value play on the previous fight, but on this one.
Yeah, this is one of the ones where it's because we have it 73-26, which it's almost like a lock, right? But because they have it less, if we make this play every single time it provides itself, like we take the guy who's the underdog, but we have him as the underdog too, but they have him as an even heavier one. If we take this play every time it happens, in the long run, it pays out. So this is if you're not consistent, this is a terrible bet. If you're consistent, it's a good bet.
That's fair.
Fair enough. All right. And the prelim headliner at lightweight, 155 pounds, Bobby Green versus Jim Miller. This is a tough one to call, so I'm going to oversimplify it a lot here. All of Miller's recent wins have been by submission. Bobby Green has never been submitted. I know that it's far more complicated than that, but I'm not exactly sure what else to go off of besides my subjective understanding of which guy has gotten older faster, not in terms of like literal age. That's easy to look up, but I mean just like wear and tear from the fight game over time. Both of these guys are well past their primes, but that doesn't mean they can't still go. They can both still go. So I'm taking Bobby Green just because he hasn't been submitted, and I feel like that's Jim Miller's path to victory.
Yeah, I mean, I have infinite respect for Jim Miller, as like he struggled with Lyme disease, he's struggling with getting older and injuries now. The dude is tough as nails. The dude's, in my opinion, should be a Hall of Famer, easily a lock. He's had incredibly amazing fights like the two with Joe Lozon. That being said, like, he is getting older, he is getting slower. There are things that he can do to Bobby Green that should have success. Like he has, if people remember from his fight with Dustin Poirier, some incredibly disgusting calf kicks. And I mean, he does have extremely gritty wrestling, but at the same time, like, Bobby Green is good at defending takedowns. He's good at avoiding being submitted. He's very, very scrambly when he wants to be. He has a really bad tendency of just kind of coasting and watching his work with that stupid shoulder roll that he does kind of only half effectively. But at the same time, like, he's willing to kick back with people. If Jim Miller tries to lean on just throwing calf kicks, Bobby Green will throw them back at him. I think I'm also unfortunately going to take Bobby Green. This is going to be a tough 2 weeks for New Jersey boys.
All right, Johnny.
The algorithm agrees with you both again. It has Bobby Green as a 60% favorite. See, the book is robbing us this week because the book also has Bobby Green as a favorite. They have him even heavier. So it is throwing another value play on Jim Miller. Again, this is a long distance kind of play. It's putting the exact middle denomination of 0.57% or 57 cents to your 100. So to put in perspective for you guys, your middle denomination, whatever you feel middle about, yeah, that's what it's throwing on Jim Miller. I just want to personally say I know about this fight. I think Bobby Green takes this fight pretty easily. I mean, I could be wrong, but I would also think that.
I like this one better than the Lima bet because, obviously you're throwing a lot less on Diego Lima, but I feel like Jim Miller's path to victory is more readily available in his fight than Lima's, even if I don't think either is particularly likely.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to the main card. At a catch weight of 140 pounds, the main card opens with Andre Ewell versus Chris Gutierrez.
Wait, did we do the Pitolo fight yet?
That is after this one.
Okay, I didn't know what
Yeah, no, I was confused too because when he said 140, I was like, that is not how much Julian Marquez weighs.
So this is at least on the UFC website as of
yeah. Go by them, yeah.
So Andre Ewell versus Chris Gutierrez seems to be opening the main card. I think this is a fun fight. I'm not familiar enough with both of them to make like a really specific case here, but there is one thing that sticks out in my mind. Andre Ewell has only ever won in the UFC by decision, and Gutierrez has a few finishes, including a leg kick finish. So those are pretty rare. Those are pretty cool. But the thing that gets put together is Ewell most likely needs to survive a full 15 minutes to get the win here. And Gutierrez is probably going to be chopping his legs up from the get-go. So whether or not Gutierrez gets the finish, I feel like if he is implementing those leg kicks and Ewell is not properly checking them, Ewell is going to be far too banged up in the second and third round to be effective. So I'm taking Gutierrez here.
Hey, Dylan, quick guess for you. Guess how long Andre Ewell's arms are?
I'm going to assume quite long.
Yeah, the man is 5'8". He has a 75-inch reach. uh, which is the same as being 6'3", which is absurd. The problem is he's not really good at maintaining that range. I pretty distinctly remember his fight with, okay, wait, I can't say distinctly remember because I was about to start contradicting myself. Um, if I remember correctly, I watched him fight with, yeah, no, I did watch his fight with Jonathan Martinez, and he was in trouble a couple times because he just couldn't keep Martinez off of him. Um, the reasons for that were a little bit different than what Chris Gutierrez brings to the table, but I think I'm also going to take Gutierrez. Like, uh, I mean, you can't have that long of a reach and struggle with putting out really good rangy offense that much.
All right, Johnny, crunch those numbers.
Yeah, so the algorithm here has this as an extremely close fight with Gutierrez as the 51% favor. The book has pretty similar things again to us. So this is a week of value plays, adjusted value plays, that is. But it has 0.23% or 23 cents on Andrew Ewell.
Andre Ewell.
I'm going dead, right? I'm going brain
The
dead.
W
Andre
isn't his last
Ewell.
name, I swear.
I don't know what's wrong with me, but yeah. So it's second smallest denomination of the night.
All right. As far as it goes, a small bet there seems reasonable.
I also just want to put it out there that Chris Gutierrez has fought a dude whose name is Mario Israel, and I just think that's nice.
All right, moving on to 185 pounds, Julian Marquez versus Maki Pitolo. I like Maki Pitolo. I think he's really cool. I thought his first win in the UFC was very impressive, but he's now 1-3 in the UFC. Julian Marquez, on the other hand, is 1-1 in the UFC and hasn't fought since his loss to Alessio Di Chirico in 2018. It's been 2.5 years. I like the styles that both of these guys bring, so this is going to be a fun fight. They're both like very like aggressive strikers, and I think this will be an absolute blast. It's also do or die, I feel like, at least for Pitolo, maybe also for Marquez, considering the long layoff. So I feel like these guys are going to be swinging from the opening bell. And when that happens, either one of them could end up getting knocked out. So I'm going to go to the trustiest possible source I can to make bets. And this never fails. It's called MMA Math, and it's definitely not wrong most of the time. So Pitolo has a loss to Darren Stewart. Marquez has a win over Darren Stewart. So I'm going to take Marquez. However, in all likelihood, this will end up being a rock, paper, scissors scenario, and Pitolo will get the win and we'll learn nothing. Connor.
So on paper, if you ignore like the layoff and everything, I think that Julian Marquez has the skills. Is Julian or Julian Marquez? I've been saying Julian.
I think it's Julian.
Okay. I think he has the combination of skills and athleticism to beat someone like Maki Pitolo. Maki hits hard, but he's not particularly skilled in my opinion. Like even his one win in the UFC, I think, right? His one win in the UFC against Charles Byrd, if I remember correctly, he was in trouble multiple times in that fight. He did not look that great, and then he suddenly won. I remember because I looked away and then looked up to see a text from Dylan going, "Oh man, did you see that?" All that being said, not only is Julian Marquez coming off of a 2.5-year layoff, like Dylan mentioned, the layoff was for a pretty nasty injury. He tore his lat completely, I believe, and has been rehabbing it since. Yeah, it's not great. So like, I hope he looks better. And if I remember correctly, before the Di Chirico fight, he also had a long layoff, and I think it was for an ACL tear. The dude's pretty injury prone. But assuming that everything looks okay, he's durable, he's reasonably talented enough, he's got a good nickname, he's got a good beard. I'm going to be taking Julian, the Cuban Missile Crisis, Marquez over Maki Pitolo in that.
All right.
Dylan, I just want to say, did you go to verdicts for the last one?
Oh, shit, I did not. Look at
I just remembered that.
Fucking amateur.
You are correct.
Yes.
All right, give me the algorithm for this one.
Yeah.
The verdict for this one, and then I will circle back to that last one.
Okay, so it has Pitolo as a 52% favorite. It being a close fight. The books agree with you guys. With sorry, where am I?
Marquez
being the favorite. So we are placing a 0.57% bet or 57 cents on Pitolo, which is the mid-tier bet of the night. Also, I want to say for the MMA math thing, just looking at our internal momentum, resume, score, however you want to say it, when comparing their wins, a win over Darren Stewart at the time of the fight was more impressive than a win over Charles Byrd. And DeKirico, I think that aged pretty decently-ish because, I mean, DeKirico recently had a pretty impressive win. So I personally like MMA math, Julian Marquez.
Yeah. Okay. So interestingly enough, Verdict seems to disagree with me and at least the UFC website as of yesterday as to what is on the main card. So it doesn't have a pick for that last one, but it did have a pick for Miller versus Green, and it picked Bobby Green by decision. The most common pick among Verdict users was Bobby Green by decision. And then for this one, Patolo versus Marquez, the Verdict community agrees with us. The most common pick is Julian Marquez by decision. So moving on to the next one. This is a very fun fight. 185 pounds, number 9 ranked Kelvin Gastelum versus number 15 ranked Ian Heinisch. Ian Heinisch is really good. His wrestling is good, but I don't think he's Kelvin Gastelum good. Gastelum has solid wrestling and insane power in his hands at middleweight. I believe that every single opponent he faced at middleweight, with the exception of Jack Hermanson, he's knocked down. I think he take down Hermanson and then
No,
did he knock him
got
down?
into a weird clinch exchange. I don't think he got taken down though.
I don't also think he ever knocked down Till.
No,
Ooh,
he didn't.
not. But he
I
did
was at that fight, so maybe I didn't
he
see it.
knocked down Weidman. There were tons of He has knocked down most of his opponents at middleweight and knocked out quite a few of them. I think he's got the power to get the finish here, and I feel like he has good enough wrestling that Ian Heinisch will not be able to control the fight the way that he does when he wins. So I'm going with Kelvin Gastelum here. I'll throw it to you, Connor, and then come back to the verdict.
Here's the thing. Do you know how many wins at middleweight Kelvin Gastelum has over opponents who are younger than 35?
I'm going to assume, based on that statement, the answer is 0.
It's 0. He has not beaten a single person who's younger than 35. If you look at his wins, like
But at what age are you saying he was?
However old he was, whatever his opponent was, if it was older than 35, he won. If it was younger than 35, he lost. He has his losses at middleweight are Weidman, Adesanya, Till, and Hermanson. That's not great because considering the guys that he beat are Bisping, who had been knocked out 2.5 weeks prior, Tim Kennedy, who was coming off of a massive layoff, and Jacare Souza, who in my opinion he lost to. I think Jacare won that fight, as do, at least in my circles, a lot of people that I talk with think that. He's coming off of 3 straight losses. Like, he really hasn't looked the same, especially since he lost to Adesanya. Like that Hermanson fight, he was just so incredibly lackadaisical and just gets snatched into a submission immediately. In terms of wrestling, he's a good defensive wrestler. He's very good at turtling to get back to his feet. But as Chris Weidman showed, he's also incredibly lazy. And if you're holding him, he'll just sit there and wait for you to do something before trying to respond to it. I don't really think that's conducive to a good strategy. He has insanely fast hands. He does hit extremely hard. But Ian Heinisch has shown that he's also incredibly durable. Even in the loss to Derek Brunson, when he got fucked up super bad, he never went down, right? Like, he still made his way to a decision, even though he got beat, if I remember correctly, pretty hard at various points. I'm going to take Ian Heinisch. Yes.
Quick question, Connor. Can you tell me what card Gastelum versus Jacare was on? Because I can see what the verdict score was at the time.
That would have been on the Amanda Nunes versus Raquel Pennington card.
It was May 12, 2018, if that helps.
May 12, 2018. I want to say that fight... Oh, man. I don't know if you were testing me or not, but I am trying my best to remember when it was.
I can go back. They have the date and verdict, so I don't need any more information.
Are you looking to see what the global...
Exactly. So
UFC
I'll take up time quickly while you do that without even giving...
How about this? I know that for this one, I know that the most common pick on verdict is Gastelum by decision over Ian Heinisch. And then looking at that fight from UFC 224, the verdict scorecards had it for Jacare 30-26.
Jeez.
So not only were they
that's a robbery,
Jacare won that. And it was, when I say 30-26, I mean, dead on. Now, obviously, Verdict in 2018 had less users than now, but that means it was unanimous or close enough to it that it wasn't even like 0.01
Averaged a little.
off.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, that says it all to me.
I just want to go through the MMA math here. The Derek Brunson loss, if we want to talk, like, fighting's very short-term memory. The Derek Brunson loss was at a time where Derek Brunson was pretty good. Internally, his momentum score, his resume score, whatever you want to say, at that point in time, he was like toward the top of that division at middleweight. And the Omari Amakhamedov loss was also, Omari Amakhamedov was not towards the top of the middleweight, but he had a good momentum score. I'm probably saying his name wrong. I'm sorry.
You added an M at the start of his name that does not exist.
No, this is good. This is entertaining. This keeps me accountable.
But basically, that loss also at that time was against a pretty damn good opponent. So those two, I think, are fine losses. The Gerald Meerschaert, I cannot say it. Meerschaert, I remember watching that one. I don't think that's that impressive of a win. I think Ian Hinch wins. I think MMA math shows it. Kelvin Gastelum's momentum score currently is not high. It's very low. The algorithm has
a streak of mispronunciation. One after the other.
That's why everyone's here. That's why we're here. That's why the 10 people tune in. They love it. The algorithm has Ian Heinisch. Yes, as a 64% favorite. I really like this pick. The books disagree. This is our largest bet of the night, tied for with at $1.70 or 1.7% of your fund. So if you're going to do it in your ways, this is your highest denomination throw. I really like it. Connor likes it. We're happy.
All right. So moving on to the co-main event, 125 pounds, the number 10th ranked Macy Barber versus number 15th ranked Alexa Grasso. Barber's been out over a year after her ACL tear, which occurred in the fight with Roxanne Modafferi. A lot of people will say that the ACL tear is why she lost that fight, but she was losing that fight before the injury occurred. Grasso has more losses in the UFC than Barber, but those losses all are to relatively good opponents. I think Grasso takes it here. However, I do think that stylistically, I could see Barber getting the win by pressuring and being very aggressive with her striking. Personally, I'm going with Grasso, and I'm also big depresso because there is a number 10 ranked UFC fighter that is a full year younger than me, and that makes me feel bad. Connor.
I agree. You don't. I mean this in the nicest way to Roxanne Modafferi, who goes out there to fight and put on impressive shows, but you don't go out there and lose to Roxanne Modafferi and still consider yourself to be one of the best in the world. Macy Barber is extremely athletic, extremely aggressive, but she kind of showed that she has a lot of technical deficiencies in that her cardio isn't necessarily all there. Whether or not the cardio issues were caused by the ACL tear is a different story. But the point for me remains that Alexa Grasso, like Dylan said, she does have more losses in the UFC, but her wins have really started to look well put together. I mean, the win over Karolina Kowalkiewicz, have fun saying that one, Johnny. It hasn't aged really well. Karolina has been kind of on the decline, but at the same time, like, she showed that she has a clear understanding of like what to do when you get into the clinch with someone who's more comfortable being in the clinch than you are, how to disengage, throwing knees and elbows, things like that, as well as her already good boxing acumen. It's possible that Macy is going to do the same thing that she did to Jillian Robertson and just kind of hulk out, get her down, and then just get her out of there before there's time to react. But I think on balance, I would rather take the person who's consistently shown improvements in her technique over the person who's relied on her athleticism as a way of getting things done.
So verdict here says that, so the most common pick in the verdict community right now is Macy Barber by decision, which obviously we disagree with. I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that Macy Barber is like well liked by UFC fans, especially since before that loss to Roxanne Modafferi, everyone's like, oh, is she going to be the youngest UFC champion ever? Yeah. And now that is not going to happen. Yeah, could she work her way up and eventually become a champion? Possibly, but she cannot be the youngest UFC champion ever at this rate. One other fun thing before I throw to the algorithm, that ACL injury brought up a lot of controversy over the doctor basically doing black magic in the octagon, because when she hurt her knee, after the round ended, the doctor looked at her, and the doctor was trying to do what's called the tibial thrust, I believe, which is to basically see if there is any tear in the ACL, but he did it completely wrong. And not only did he do it wrong, but he then went on to say, yeah, there's a partial tear, which to my understanding, the tibial thrust will tell you if there is a tear or there is not a tear, but will not tell you whether it's partial or full. And basically a bunch of the YouTube community of actual like doctors who talk about sports were basically shitting on this doctor for being so overconfident in himself while improperly doing the technique. Now, I don't know how it's done in humans. I only know how to do it with dogs. But everything that they said lined up in my head where I was like, yeah, that seems like this doctor's an idiot. There you go.
I feel like this is the type of thing that you should say at the beginning of your rant about how bad the human doctor is to be like, by the way, I don't know what it does in humans. I only know what it does in fucking dogs.
Oh, no. I'm not saying I don't know how you can grade it, because I watched actual MDs, like human doctors, explain it at length. What I'm saying is I'm taking them on their word, which I trust, that he had the technique wrong. Because I don't know where to physically place my hands to do it on a human, because it's different when you do it in a dog.
If there's ever a cage fighting for dogs, we'll get you in the ring.
Michael Vick had that a few years ago. People didn't like it.
Yeah, that was like backyard brawls. It wasn't really registered yet, but
let's not
anyway.
register that. Thank you.
The algorithm itself has Macy Barber as a 58% favorite, agreeing with verdict, disagreeing with you two, and disagreeing with the books. The books have Barber as the underdog, so it is throwing a medium-sized bet on her, since we also have it closed on the algorithm, with the 0.57% or 57 cents or the exact middle tier. Quickly over the MMA math, because I really like putting things into perspective at that time. In terms of like not of embarrassing losses, only Macy Barber has an embarrassing loss. And not saying against Roxanne Modafferi, but when she lost to Roxanne Modafferi was already on a loss streak, and it was a pretty disappointing loss. She had a pretty poor momentum score, whereas Alexa Grasso didn't lose to anyone terrible. I mean, her losses, they weren't amazing, but they weren't as bad as Roxanne Modafferi. No offense, I like her. I think she's funny. But I also personally see Grasso taking this fight on the basis of MMA math.
Yeah. I think that makes sense. And I don't necessarily disagree with betting on Barber, just because I don't see it being the more likely outcome. It is possible. Like that one wouldn't shock me. All right, moving on, our main event for the welterweight title, Kamaru Usman, the champion, defends against the #1 ranked Gilbert Burns. So these guys are former/current teammates, depending on who you ask. They both trained under Henry Hooft. This fight was supposed to happen over the summer. So Usman moved over to work with Trevor Whitman, Justin Gaethje's coach at Onyx Labs. I think Whitman is the best striking coach in the game, and I think Usman's resume, I feel like Usman had everything else that he needed in his game. Not that he's constantly pulling off submissions, but his wrestling is really, really good. He's good at controlling people. So I felt like having, this coach that was going to show him new angles in terms of the striking, I really liked. Of course, the move to that gym turned out to be very, very smart for Kamaru Usman, because there was a COVID outbreak in his old gym. Gilbert Burns got it. That's why the fight was canceled. Jorge Masvidal stepped in. Usman beat Jorge Masvidal. Now Gilbert Burns is healed up, ready to go, and we're having this fight. It really is interesting to have two former/current teammates to fight each other, because they train together all the time. So they really do know what they're doing. Like, they probably know exactly what it feels like to grapple with each other, to spar with each other. I don't know how hard those guys spar in that gym, but
Gym, they spar hard.
They spar hard because Gaethje posted something about how Usman in their first training practice put him down. So
that's Usman's new gym. I'm talking about.
Yeah, but I'm saying, like, if Usman's training like that with Gaethje, he was probably training like that with Burns.
No, Hard Knocks 365 trade. They spar fucking hard.
They toss heads.
With that being said, they've essentially kind of fought each other a bunch. If they're sparring at like 80%, like that's serious, and they might spar even harder than that. So these guys know each other very, very well. Despite the fact that both of these guys dominated Tyron Woodley, there was a point where Woodley had Burns pinned up against the cage for a little bit. And I feel like that's the one sign that has me going against Gilbert Burns, because Kamaru Usman is super strong and he likes to hold people against the fence. And I know people complain, oh, it's boring, this and that. You are fighting for a world championship. Winning that belt means more money, right? That's more dinner on your family's plate. So I'm not going to sit here and criticize Kamaru Usman for not always being the most exciting fighter if he keeps winning and dominating. I really don't care. I understand why casual fans might be bothered by it, but the strategy is sound.
Yeah.
I do think that Burns is going to push the pace and make it difficult for Usman to make it a boring fight. I feel like this one should be more exciting than the Masvidal fight because Burns is stronger than Masvidal. And I feel like it's going to be harder for Usman to like actually have that pinned up against the cage situation happening for long periods of time. But I do see it happening enough that Usman is able to win on the scorecards. Connor?
Damn, the disrespect for Usman. His style is much more than just hold you up against the cage. He repeatedly went for takedowns against Masvidal. Masvidal is just a good takedown defender. Not even Benson Henderson could get him down. Damian Maia struggled with it. Like, the dude's good at it. On that note, this is gonna be a really good fight. I'm actually really interested in this one. I'm picking Usman. The reason being that he's just gigantic. Like, he has been at 170 his entire career. But he's like 6'1", I think. He rehydrates a ton. Gilbert Burns, he's juicier, not juicier, but like he's more well hydrated now. Poor choice of words. But you know, he used to fight at 155. He's got an extremely aggressive striking style. And like he does look much better at 170. He's got amazing jiu-jitsu. But that being said, like, Usman has clearly shown that he's very, very good at matching people at their strengths, whether it be, you know, like, or not matching people, actually matching people at their weaknesses. Like, he's very comfortable taking down strikers and striking with wrestlers. I don't really see any reason why he won't be able to do that with Gilbert Burns. He's strong enough and good enough at wrestling that he's not particularly afraid of going to the ground with people when the occasion demands it. And I think that his striking, especially with the way that he's been mixing up the that left body or he's orthodox, the right body kick where he's just kind of digging in the toes, like that hurt Colby several times throughout the fight. That's really fucking nice. I don't see any reason why he can't get that done. It wouldn't surprise me if Gilbert Burns wins. You know, Usman got stung a few times pretty badly by Colby. He looked surprised by some punches from Masvidal. Maybe Gilbert lands something and it hurts Usman and it's just the beginning of the end. But I think more often than not, Usman's just going to be able to comfortably control his way to a decision.
Right. So
Or
first
late
of all,
finish. Who knows?
I have to give the disclaimer. I'm not saying that that's Kamaru Usman's entire style, right? Of course, we saw the Colby Covington fight where you had two wrestlers who decided to punch the ever-living fuck out of each other for 5 rounds, and it was lovely. And Colby Covington thankfully got his jaw wired shut, which is just karmic justice on the highest level. But I feel like that's the sort of thing that if Woodley was able to do that exact thing to Burns, I feel like Usman can apply that game plan. That being said, verdict agrees with both of us. Usman by decision is the most common pick.
So what's the percentage of people that pick that also? I think that'd be interesting.
I don't believe it shows us. I think it just shows us what the most common pick
It
is.
doesn't show that circle, the blue and red circle with the percentages.
It does. Okay, so 43% of people have picked Usman by decision. And then almost no one has predicted Usman by knockout. I think 1 + 3 is 4, 5, and then 10.
It should say in like blue and red circles next to their names.
So it doesn't show the circles. It shows it by round here. I don't know if you guys you can't even see that. It shows it by round. So overall, 11% of people have picked Usman by knockout at some point in the fight. Only 1% pick him by submission, which I find odd. And then Burns, you got...
Apparently he's a 55% predicted that he would beat Burns. 55%.
Okay, gotcha. So you're going on their Instagram. I'm actually going
Yes.
into the app to break down the individual picks. But right now, so 43% of people that picked this fight picked Usman by decision. And then 16% picked Burns by decision. And I have to do the math here, but more than 16% of people picked Burns by finish. So essentially, if they feel that Burns' way to win is by not submission, and a fair bunch did call him by submission, but the most common pick is decision for Usman.
I think that Usman is one of the best fighters of our generation of watching recently. And the reason I think that is, I mean, you can go by anything, and may math anything. Like Colby Covington versus Usman, that was my favorite fight I've ever seen in my life, I think. That fight was so, I was watching with a lot of like fans that don't really watch that much. And they want to watch those two fighters fight. Like, oh, I want to, which is crazy because Usman sometimes is categorized as boring. And I think Colby Covington goes on to finish Tyron Woodley. Like, it's not like Colby Covington was never the same. Like, they're both great fighters. So it just shows how good Usman is. And to that fact, Colby Covington, everyone said no one could handle his stamina. No one can handle his pace. Usman did. And Usman gave it back harder. You know, he was the one less tired at the end. I mean, he knocked him out. But
one thing quickly before you jump in. So a friend of mine who is very much a casual fan that is starting to get into the sport more just because he likes betting, texted me out of the blue, and I couldn't believe he said this because I immediately agreed with it. And he said, quote, "I think that Usman is going to win. However, I would bet you that the books are undervaluing Gilbert Burns, and I bet you that your algorithm is going to say that Burns is worth betting on as a value play." I'm not sure if that's true, but I agreed with the logic. And looking today, Usman was a minus 270 something on the book that I looked at. And if that's the case, yeah, totally agree. What does it say? Am I right?
Your friend and you are that close because you guys were right, but wrong. Right in that it overvalued Usman. We have Usman as a 70% favorite. If you want to convert that into money line, which we can, it's just difficult because it's not linear. So like it's not like a linear change. Like as you get up in percentage, you go up, you start shooting up much higher in money line, if that makes sense. It's an
exponential, yeah.
But 70% is minus 241. Minus 270's gotta be somewhere close to 73, 74. Like it starts getting more crazy, the increments of money line. But on the other hand, they have Gilbert Burns as a plus 230, the book. We have Gilbert Burns as a plus 240. So there was no value on either side. So actually there's no play here.
Ooh, okay.
Interestingly enough, I hate to disappoint your friend, but I mean, personally, like just talking about the two fighters, I think Usman takes this. The algorithm thinks there's no value either way. Don't bet on this fight. Just sit back and enjoy it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you explaining it to me with the actual numbers in there, it makes sense. But I still feel like, obviously not the algorithm, not the one to trust. The algorithm always bets better than me. I feel like Burns has some decent value in him. But
oh yeah, I mean that's coming on your knowledge of MMA, which applied in specific places like here is completely valid. I mean, if you're betting or whatever, go by your gut, because if I'm Dylan, I'm not listening to the algorithm. Who cares? I might do that. This is just saying in the long term, you avoid these types of positions.
Yeah. All right. So do we have any other last minute things to say before we close out for the week?
I think that Kelvin Gastelum's going to lose. I really like the Ian Heinisch. Yep. I really like that pick a lot. I think the books are wrong, and I think Kelvin Gastelum's career is, while amazing, I think it's slowing down a little bit, but I could be wrong.
All right. So that will wrap us until next week when we break down. Is there a card the week after this? I believe there is, correct?
There is a card the week after this, and I am hyped for it. It is Curtis Blades versus Derek Lewis.
Oh, that's wonderful. Okay, so we will be back in about a week's time to discuss how the algorithm did here. We'll also discuss the algorithm picks for that next Fight Night card, and maybe a little bit of Hooked on Phonics so that Johnny can learn to pronounce fighter names. See you next week.